So Crimson Duel's here, back with Covillen. We had been chatting back and forth a bit about the Dark Magician deck. It's something that he was interested in playing, and one potential option to help get to King of Games. So we had been kind of talking through the structure and what might be ideal, those type of things. So we figured it might be interesting content to record here and kind of chat through his thought process, his experience playing with the deck. I gave some feedback, which I'll happily chat through here, and kind of we'll see how the conversation goes. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so let me give you my thought process behind building this deck. So we'll actually start with the skill. I chose Destiny's Draw because I feel like that skill definitely does give you a advantage when you need to pick a specific card in your deck. And sometimes you don't get the right card or you don't get the card in the time that you want. So if you're lucky enough to actually survive, the attack, and it's not game over, and you're down by 200 or 2,000 or more life points, I kind of feel like that skill is best with Yugi here, and so that's why I chose that skill. And a lot of people are like, you need to change your skill, but I personal experience here is that I feel like I win more matches with this skill than with any other skill that Yugi has. And again, that's just my personal preference and just what I notice when I'm playing. Um, so of course, we added three Dark Magicians. We got the Rod here, and then some people asked me, why do you have Legion in here? And so Legion can be played a couple of different ways. I basically have that. So just in case I don't have the Dark Magician in my hand, that I could potentially have the Legion in my hand. And from there, I can hopefully I have one of the Dark Magician girls um, that I can summon to the field and tribute that, and in turn put a Dark Magician in my hand. So with me, this player experience is that sometimes, or I want to say a lot of times, I notice that I have all the cards that I need, but the Dark Magician. And without the Dark Magician in your hand, it really doesn't work. And so some people have told me maybe you should cut it down, maybe you should take it out. But for me, it actually works really good in conjunction with the magical dimension. So when putting that on the field, I can actually special summon, or let's see. So if you control a spell type monster, you can target one monster. You can tribute that target, then special summon spellcaster from your hand. So I can tribute this, put a spellcaster on the field, and then in turn that allows me to put the Dark Magician in my hand, getting things working. So I've noticed that works a lot for me. So that's why I have the Legion Fiend Gesture in my deck. And of
Cool.
course, you got the Dark Illusion in there. You can have one or two. Some people play three. I noticed that when I play more than one, it comes up when it's not needed. And I tend to kind of have like a brick hand. And then, of course, I'm working on trying to get another one of the
This is the
Apprentice Illusion
hardest card to
Magician.
get right now for this deck for sure. Everything else pretty much can come from like the recent structure deck. So yeah.
Hmm. And so, of course, you run three Dark Circles there, and then the newest expansion card, Dark Dimension, and then whatever trap cards that you want. So preferably, I like to choose Eternal Soul, even though it is kind of like a double-edged sword. I feel like it does help you most of the time, except for when it gets destroyed and it takes off all your monsters off the field. But it helps in bringing the Dark Magician onto the field, so that's why I keep it. And again, it's totally up to you what trap cards that you want to play. But this is just a deck that I recently made, and it seems to win more matches than it loses. And I'm currently at rank. Um, what is it? So beyond gold, it's
Hmm.
platinum three. So far, and I'm ranking up there. So I've noticed that I've won a lot more matches than I've lost with this deck.
Cool. Do you want me to give some of the feedback there?
Yeah, definitely
Cool.
some of the feedback.
So
Definitely the pros and cons.
yeah. So I guess the way I approach it with the Dark Magician deck, so it became kind of competitively viable again after the release of the recent structure deck for Yugi.
Hmm.
So before that, the power of the Dark Magician deck was typically just through kind of recycling resources. So a lot of what you have here, right? The Dark Magical Circle, you have Eternal Soul, you have your Dark Magicians, and you continually recycle them on and off the field. So it gets destroyed one turn, you bring it back from the graveyard, then you trigger the effect of
Hmm.
Dark Magical Circle, you banish a card.
Hmm.
You can do it on your opponent's turn too, and it is incredibly irritating to just have that, and you can't really stop the banish effect. It's not like a destruction effect where sometimes, that'll trigger something else to go off. The banishing is just painful. And it
Hmm.
was really powerful for that reason. It's very hard to, unless you just get Dark Magical Circle off the field very quickly, or your opponent does, I should say, like, you can continually just play through that. Now, with the structured deck that came out, you kind of mentioned a couple of the cards there. So, Magical Dimension. You
Hmm.
also have the second row card on the left there. You have the Quick Play Fusion card. So, the
Yes.
strength of the deck went from being kind of recycling resources, so like meant to last many turns and can just continue with the power, to going more of just speed as being the power.
Hmm.
So in addition, a lot of this is driven by the skill Magician's Magic. And what that
Hmm.
allows you to do is basically very, very rarely brick because you can play Dark Magician without ever having to do any tribute summoning. So
Hmm.
super powerful in itself. So I can actually share my screen now if you like and
Yeah, sure.
show like the differences there. Actually, hold on 1 minute. Let me actually say a couple more things now that I'm looking at this.
Sure.
So the other thing is kind of like being clear on what like the intent you're looking for is. So like with the Dark Magician deck that I'm playing for, playing with that I'll show off in just a few minutes here. Like I'm really going for a thin deck and I'm going for that speed on there. So
Hmm.
I often think of it as like there's not many bad cards, right? Like, sure, you can have like a normal monster with like 400 attack, whatever. That's a bad card. But like, as you continue to build archetypes here, like they have good monsters, and then when you have new cards released there, they're going to be a little bit better, and the next ones to be released with archetype are a little bit better. So like, the original ones generally weren't bad. It's just that they keep improving on. So
Hmm.
very often, like the most powerful deck at a time, in my opinion, is going to have most of the new cards and just working off however that deck is supposed to play. So like with the Jester there, that was like part of my feedback is like I don't think it's a bad card, but when I understand that I want to have a really thin deck, I'm not going to include that there just because like to your point, like sometimes it's the trade-off of like, well, it helps me get a Dark Magician, but you also increase your odds of drawing a Dark Magician by just having fewer cards in the deck already. You mentioned it, but the Apprentice Illusion is one like ideally you have three, but it comes from a main box with 180 packs in it. You have to go through it three times. It's not
Yeah.
fun. If this is a deck someone's building right now, you could use the Dream Ticket you got this month from the World Championship, but probably use that for something else right now. Just an example. Um, but yeah, like that is kind of my thought with some of the other cards here too. Like the current meta deck isn't really playing Magician's Rod or Magician's Navigation. They're obviously really good cards and they have a clear purpose, but like they're not totally necessary and they can add a little bit of clutter there. Same thing with like
Hmm.
a couple other cards like Dark Hole. You don't really need Monster Reborn. You don't really need Wall of Disruption or Eternal Soul just to get down to like a flat 20 cards. But to your point, like this is a deck that can definitely win games. Might have a challenge getting to King of Games, but it is I think it's a strong start. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's been doing good.
Yeah.
I will know how good it is once I get to the rank one of what.
The Legend.
Yeah. Thank you.
I
Rank one of Legend, because that's when the real games start, and I know like, oh, okay, this deck is not going to do it.
Yeah, it's and I should also say just to be completely blunt, like the Dark Magician deck has seen a bit less play right now with Orchest taking off. I know if we have a little extra time later, we can talk about Orchest and happy to give my thoughts on it. But
Hmm.
like a lot of decks that are being played are either one of 20 variations of Orchest or a deck set up to counter Orchest. So not the best time for the meta when you can't really play what you want and expect to like get at the top of the top. But
Right.
sometimes these things happen, unfortunately, and we ride out the storm and stick with the game that we love here. But anyway,
Yep.
I'm happy to show my deck if you don't mind now. I'll swap over to the screen share. I
Yeah.
think you might
Sure.
have to
Sure.
pull yours down first.
Okay. Let's see. So presentation.
Okay,
There we
a
go.
little bit. So as you can see what the name is, meant to be an Orcus Buster. something to kind of counter a little bit there. But um, yeah, so this is kind of what I'm thinking of as very thin. So we have the three apprentices there. We have three Dark Magician girls because they kind of work with the skill there with Magician's Magic, where you
Hmm.
can kind of send one of them back to the deck. You can get the Conjurer and you can get Dark Dimension very easily there. To your
Hmm.
point, three Dark Magicians, that's pretty standard. And then the rest of it, like you look at the spell cards. This is quick play, two quick play here, one quick play Book of Moon, three quick play Magical Dimension. Like you just have a ton of speed. You have a ton of opportunities to end the duel in one turn. Can work really really well. You have like a Dark Magician girl on the field. You can quick play into one of these other ones, then you can quick play into Magical Dimension, and easily work through 4,000 attack points, or sorry, 4,000 life points, and finish your opponent. Got the
Hmm.
three dark magical circles as we mentioned. Pretty clear use there. I wouldn't say it's like the main part of the deck, but obviously still very, very powerful with that added benefit where you can draw from the deck as well and try to pull another card out. And then
True.
the Orcus stuff is more of, I added terraforming in here. Didn't really need it. Could have a second Necro Valley if you want, but just with that Orcus busting kind of idea there, if we're locking our opponent out of the graveyard, I will admit it doesn't have perfect synergy with this deck only because we have this card here where we're after. I'm sorry, if we have, after using Secrets of Dark Magic, if we have the Dark Magicians on the field, it gets destroyed. We can bring back the Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician from the graveyard, but if we have Necro Valley active, that won't work. So a little bit of a trade-off there, but we only have like two ways of getting Necro Valley, so you're not going to get it every single duel. And, you always need your limited threes in there. So I put three crackdowns. These are just going to stop. I find that right now these are probably the best of kind of the limited three traps. That reason is if you think about like the three that we have that are the most popular. So we have Crackdown, we have Evac, and we have Ice Dragon's Prison. So Evac, you can pop it and it goes back to the hand. Or yeah, the card goes back to the hand. It's okay with Orcus, but not great. In Ice Dragon's
Yeah.
Prison, it's the same thing where you're gonna banishing an Orcus monster doesn't do anything because they're meant to be banished anyway. If they go back to the graveyard, or sorry, they go back to the deck, they can end up back in the hand. They get played. It doesn't do anything. So
Hmm.
Crackdown allows you to steal the monster, until your opponent pulls out a MST or another way of getting the card off the field. It's yours, and that can really be the most powerful way, especially with the materials. They don't go to the graveyard, then you're taking that too, and that is a
Hmm.
big part of it. Um, that is really the main part here. I've had pretty good success with this. It's not the deck that I'm mainly playing right now. I did upload a video pretty recently. I played a top 100 player from a KC Cup a few years ago and walked right through him with this deck, so that was a bit of fun, but I don't think is what I'm
Yeah.
going to get to King of Games with. But yeah, figured I would show this off. Let me pause. I mean, do you have any questions about kind of the approach that I took here?
No, 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 no. It seems pretty clear. So your main focus is once you get up there, you're going to be focusing on Orcus because you're pretty sure that you're going to face that deck more than anything else. So a good strategy is once you start getting up in ranks when it comes to the PvP, is that if you know you're going to be, if you know like out of 10 matches, like 5 or 6 of your matches are going to be Orcus because everybody's playing it, then it makes sense to construct the deck around that so that you're properly prepared to battle that deck versus just hoping randomly, that okay, I get the right cards in my hand and that, I can outplay my opponent. You might win one or two matches like that, but eventually the Orcus parade will come through.
Yeah, I mean, just having that awareness of what is in the meta, what is active, is absolutely needed. There's a lot of ways that people are countering Orchestra right now, but when one deck pretty much takes over and it's getting, 50+% of high level plays there, you just, no matter what deck you're playing, you need at least a few cards that are almost specifically designed to try to counter it. If not,
Hmm.
your whole deck being one that is meant to counter it there. So very common. Again, I don't think this is the strongest deck anyone could play right now, but I do think if you're playing Dark Magicians, this is a pretty solid structure that you could go with.
Agreed.
Cool. Let me stop this one.